If you're using any of LeanData's standard object routers, you may know that you can use a new activity trigger to initiate routing for that object when a new Salesforce activity, like a task or event, is created on that record. However, sometimes you may want to initiate routing, let's say on a lead router, when an existing task is updated. For example, let's say you've got your BDRs call newly marketing activated leads to qualify them. And then you manage that qualification in an ongoing task. When the lead has been qualified, they'll mark the task as complete, and you would like to trigger some automation through your lead router to get it assigned to a sales rep, and maybe even some data hygiene actions like changing the lead status. So let's walk through how to do that together. I'm going to assume that you've already got any object routing set up on your task object. If you haven't, please reach out to your LeanData team, and we'll be happy to help you get that set up. So in order to do this, we'll have to start things off in our task router, because that's the object where our BDR is completing their qualification task. So from the LeanData UI, we'll go to routing here, and then we'll jump down to any object. And then we will pick the object that we've set up any object router for. In this case, we'll be doing tasks, and then we'll open the flow builder page. Now from here, we'll create a new graph. All right, since we're dealing with updated tasks here, I'll go ahead and focus on this entry node. And opening that up, we will see the conditions for what needs to happen on an existing qualification task for us to kick off this process. So for my conditions, I'll use status equals, and then let's go with completed. But we probably don't want to do this for all tasks in Salesforce, so I'm going to add another condition here where the subject must contain the word qualification so that I know it's a qualification task. If you have your own way of capturing qualification tasks, you can feel free to use that as a condition instead. Now let's name our edge completed qualification task. All right, and then we'll go ahead and hit done. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I need to access the lead record that the task is associated with. So in order to do that, I'll need to capture that in a variable. So I will go ahead and pull in from the action nodes in my node bar, a set variable node. And then I'll have my completed qualification tasks enter this set variable node. And here I'll set the variable, and then I will name this one related lead. So that's the variable name. And then here I'll actually want to set that to object, and then I'll select lead. And then here I'll actually need to pull in or draw in the ID for the related lead. So I'll click on insert, and then we're looking at the routed tasks. And then I'm going to select name because that connects tasks with leads or contacts. But you could also go for the lead field if you wanted to do that. And then I'm going to get the ID from that related lead. All right, before we forget, let's go ahead and rename this node to set related lead variable. Okay, and then we will ensure that the next node edge is open. Okay, it is. So the next thing that we need to do is actually perform some update on that related lead record. So we need to go to our action nodes. This time we're going to pull in an update record node. And then we'll have our next node edge from the set variable node proceed into our update record node. So now we need to designate what type of update to make on this lead record. And we're actually going to use this update to trigger our lead routing. So we would create you could create a brand new field just for the purpose of triggering lead routing from this task router. But here, since I actually want to update the lead status anyways, why don't we just use that, the status update, to also trigger our lead router. So here I need to change the variable. Instead of routed task, we're going to update the related lead. And that's the variable that I had set up one node prior. And as for the field that I want to look at, it's going to be the status field on the lead. And the thing that I want to do is I want to update the value to sales qualified. Okay. So before we close this out, let's make sure that we rename the node. Let's call this update tasks related lead. All right, and then we'll hit done. Okay, so this looks good. And then we can go ahead and validate and save this graph. So now that we've captured the trigger of a BDR completing a qualification task, and then we've also initiated an automation to update the related lead, now we need to go to our lead record and our lead router actually, and then ensure that there is an entry point that looks for that status update as a trigger so that we can use it to kick off other lead automations, such as assigning the record by some round robin perhaps. So let's jump back to our main LeanData UI, and we'll go back to routing. And this time we'll go to leads and then flow builder. And here I'm just going to open up the graph that we are already routing records through. And then I'm just going to update this one directly. So once that finishes loading, let's go to the updated lead entry point, and we'll click include the leads below. And then for the conditions that we want, I'm going to select status equals sales qualified. And now if you had updated a different field from your AnyObject routing task router, then you would use that as the condition here instead. So let's go ahead and relabel this. It would help to somehow indicate that this was initiated from our task router. So let's say qualification task completed. Okay. And lastly, let's connect this to an action. You could connect this to your main graph if you wanted to, but let's just say for these, we want them to be assigned via a round robin pool. So very simply, I'm going to go to our node bar and pull in a round robin assignment node. And then once that's there, we'll connect our updated entry edge to our round robin. And let's go ahead and finish this off by opening up the round robin node and select the pool that we want to assign these sales qualified leads to. And I just so happen to have a sales qualified pool here, so we can just use that. Okay, and then we're done. So this is a way that you can initiate routing from the task or activity object and initiate routing on other objects, as long as there is an existing lookup relationship to follow. Now, please keep in mind that technically these updates will happen in 2 separate transactions, so you do need to keep that in mind. Well, I hope that helps.